Hey, hey, Jimmy Smith back with my pre-fight breakdown. This time, Stipe Miocic versus Daniel Cormier, the end of the trilogy, their third one. We start off at the bottom of the card, and it's Magomed Akalayav versus Iwan Kutalaba. This is a rematch of what was a really bad stoppage. For those of you who didn't see it, it was early in the fight. Ankalaev and Kutalaba were exchanging punches. Ankalaev was landing the better shots. I'll go back to this in a minute. And then Kutalaba was either faking that he was rocked, meaning he was kind of wobbling a little bit like this. For people that remember Nick Diaz versus Jeremy Jackson, he did the same thing. He got hit, pretended to be out, and threw a right hand at Diaz. It missed, but it looked like he was either doing that, which is pretending to be more wobbled than he was, or he was just loosening up and trying to move his head. So I've seen people do that too, and they get hit and they kind of like do this, trying to fake their opponent out by wobbling a little bit. Maybe he was trying to do that. But anyway, referee steps in, stops the fight. Mid-punch for Kutalaba. Kutalaba was throwing back, and he was throwing back hard. And after a big punch he was throwing at Ankalaev, referee stops the fight. Horrible stoppage. Period. Even if the guy's rocked on his feet, as long as he's throwing back, he could see the punches. He wasn't getting out of the way of all of them. But he was intelligently answering back. He was intelligently defending himself, and the referee stopped it. Bad stoppage all the way around. So Kutalaba, furious. He had talked a lot of trash before the fight, and he's a very emotionally intense guy anyway, and he was furious. So that's why this rematch is happening. So what does the first fight tell us about the rematch? One of the things it says to me is, well, first off, let me say that I really believe the fighter who fights smarter wins this fight. Both guys are more versatile than they get a lot of credit for. They can do a lot of things. They're not just stand forward brawlers. They are excellent strikers. They're versatile, and they have decent takedowns. They have decent ground and pound. We've seen that in previous fights with them. Kutalaba, when he took on Khalil Rountree, interesting part of that fight, he walked across the octagon before the fight, got in Rountree's face and did this. Rountree didn't want to hear it, didn't really acknowledge him at all. And when the fight started, he took Rountree down and unleashed some really good ground and pound and stopped the fight. So he got emotional and was all, boisterous and angry, but fought a smart fight. He doesn't have to go out there and sling bombs because he's emotional. So, if you look at Ankalaev, he ended a fight the same way Lyoto Machida and Anderson Silva ended fights with that front kick that is beautiful and accurate and strong. Lungiambula he knocked him out with that front kick right to the chin, and he played a great outside game against a short guy with really strong punches. He played the outside game, was very, very accurate, tactical, good feints, good movement. So these are guys who have a big skill set, who can do a lot of things. So the one that fights smarter is the one who's going to win. I think Ankalaev is just more likely to fight smart than Kutalaba. I think he's upset about the first fight. He's going to go out there and try and wing big punches and get it done early and fight an emotional fight he shouldn't fight, and Ankalaev is going to catch him. Also, as I said, what does the first fight tell us about the second fight? In that exchange that ended the fight, even though it was a piss-poor stoppage, Kutalaba was the one getting hit. Ankalaev wasn't. So Kutalaba was getting hit with these shots. None of them were fight-ending shots. A lot of them were, kind of deflected and clipped him, but he was the one getting hit. What was his reaction? To hit harder. He didn't step back and, okay, I need to defensively get a little more sound and tighten up and move around. No, it was, okay, I'm going to step forward and hit this guy hard. His reaction is throw bigger punches. And he didn't address the fact that he was getting hit. He didn't defensively address what was going on. Ankalaev was hitting him with shots, and Kutalaba just stepped forward and tried to hit harder. I generally don't like seeing that. When someone is getting hit, a smart fighter, a lot of times you want to see them readjust and take care of their opponent's offense before they go nuts and try to... And it wasn't like slick counterpunching. He was stepping forward trying to land big punches. So we saw that under duress, he fights emotionally. And I think Ankalaev fights a little bit cooler. Kutalaba comes out trying to land big punches. And we saw in the first fight what happened when we tried to land big punches. Ankalaev was able to find his openings and hit him. And I think that's what's going to happen in this rematch. He gets it done probably early. That would be my pick. So I'm going with Ankalaev in that one. Next up, John Dodson versus Merab Dvalishvili. Dvalishvili is on a 4-fight winning streak, should be 5, in my opinion, simply because no one has effectively explained to me. If you haven't seen it, the Ricky Simon fight, he was choked unconscious at the end of the fight. Fight's over, and Ricky Simon was declared the winner. I No one's ever effectively explained to me how you choke somebody out once the fight's over. So I guess the logic would be he was out before the bell rang, but the fight was not stopped before the bell rang. So anyway, I won't go on and on about that. But on a 4-fight win streak, all decisions. If you look at the Gustavo Lopez fight, which was his last one, the reason I'm picking Dodson in this fight is he had trouble with the punches of Gustavo Lopez, who's not the most versatile puncher in the world. He's not a great boxer. And Dvalishvili was off balance a lot. When he would wing his punches, a lot of times his feet weren't under him. And when Gustavo Lopez would hit him, he would be off balance and it would really rock him. And once again, Lopez, not a great puncher, not super experienced, not a versatile striker, and his boxing caused Dvalishvili problems. Now, what Dvalishvili was able to do is get the takedown when he needed it. And when he did, great ground and pound. His jiu-jitsu transitions were better, he was bigger, and Lopez couldn't overcome that. I didn't like what I saw in response to the boxing of Lopez. Now, if you look at Dodson, Dodson is an effective boxer, and Dodson has fought much better talent. He hasn't always beaten that better talent, but he's fought better talent. And if you look at his history, he's lost 3 out of his last 5. But look at the losses. Peter Yan, Jimmy Rivera, Marlon Moraes, okay? All by decision. Some of them very, very close, especially the Marlon Moraes fight. So he's lost to the best of the best when he's lost. And it's been close. He hasn't been blown out in any of these. So, of course, a couple losses to Demetrius Johnson, but it's... he's experienced, he can be composed, he tends to go decision, he's never been finished, which is important. And his strength, a lot of times, is his boxing. He won his last one by TKO over Nathaniel Wood. So what I saw in Dvalishvili is his tendency to not respond well to a short-range boxing game, which is what Dodson has because Dodson's undersized for this weight class. So a lot of times he has to get inside to land big punches. He's not a great outside striker. So it's got to be at boxing range. Can Dvalishvili just take him down at will? I don't think so. He might get his takedowns, and that might be a factor in the fight for sure. But Dodson's not an easy guy to take down. Once again, short, stocky, not easy to get under him. And I don't think Dvalishvili is going to have his way with the takedown like he did in his last fight. I don't think Dodson's going to be the takedown as Lopez was. And that was really what saved him in that fight because a lot of times on the feet, he was getting hurt at close range. So I'm going with John Dodson in that one, probably by decision. Dvalishvili is not an easy guy to finish. So John Dodson by decision. Junior Dos Santos, Yarinho Rozenstruik. I mean, this is pretty simple. It's a battle of stand-up strikers, and Junior Dos Santos' best days are behind him. Right, a former champion. The key to his success has always been weird angle on his punches. He's a powerful puncher, but the way he gets you is their long, loopy shots. And a lot of fighters have their hands up and think they're prepared, and that shot just gets over it and knocks him out. So he had kind of a weird style, long range and heavy hands. That combination really made him great in his prime. He could hit you when you couldn't see it. It was a knockout shot. And when you're trying to figure out his cadence and his rhythm, you couldn't figure it out in time. And that's how he got you. He's just slipped a bit over the last few years. And that's normal. That's the way it goes. So the problem is he's lost his last 2. Of course, knocked out Derek Lewis. That's impressive. But Curtis Blades, Francis Ngannou, they were knockouts. And of course, Francis Ngannou can knock out anyone in the division. Curtis Blades, much improved striking. But I do get the feeling that Junior Dos Santos has just lost a step in the last few years. Rozenstruik, of course, he lost to Ngannou as well, got blitzed early, but I liked his composure against Overeem. He was losing that fight and got a late knockout against a very, very versatile striker, albeit a guy who tends to fall to that kind of tactic. So this is one of those faded former champs, still has a great name, against an up-and-comer who I think just has a little too much for him physically. I think in his prime, Junior Dos Santos wins this fight, but I think Rozenstruik has a little too much for him, is a little too young, still has more potential moving forward than JDS, who, once again, a former champion. He probably doesn't get another shot without a great performance. I got to go with Rozenstruik, probably by knockout. I would say round 2. Sean O'Malley, Marlon Chito Vera. When people were talking about this fight after Sean O'Malley's last win, I was all about it. I really think this is a good fight. I still think Sean O'Malley wins. I think this is a tougher test. I like Marlon Vera. He's aggressive. He's versatile. He's got a ton of heart. He's experienced. There's nothing glaringly wrong with his fighting style. He doesn't do anything really, really well. It's a tougher test, but I think Sean O'Malley passes, okay? What I think we're going to see is I think we might see some adversity in this fight. I think we might see it perhaps go the distance. In fact, I think it probably is by decision. I think he has to eat some punches. I think he has to figure out Vera a little bit. And I think he does those things. I think this is the next step up for Sean O'Malley, but it may not look like previous Sean O'Malley fights where it's a walk-away, beautiful one-shot knockout and he, screams at the crowd. That might not happen. It might be a little uglier. It might be a little longer. It might be trickier. And so we're going to see more of Sean O'Malley from this fight, but I still think we see a win. So I think it goes long, and I think it's either a late stoppage for O'Malley or he wins by decision. I think Chito Vera isn't going to be mentally overwhelmed. I don't think he's going to be nervous. I don't think he's going to be flustered. I don't think he's going to see this as a great opportunity. But skill set wise, I really do think Sean O'Malley has the potential to go far in the sport, and I think he gets by Marlon Vera. A less dramatic fight, but I think he gets by Marlon Vera. Stipe Miocic, Daniel Cormier. This is a very interesting fight. Of course, two great fighters. It's a trilogy. Each one is 1-1, both of them by finish. I can talk all day about the skill sets, okay? Daniel Cormier, world-class wrestler who has vastly improved his striking. We saw that against Stipe in the first fight. Stipe, a big heavyweight. I think him and Fedor are the number one heavyweights of all time. Good wrestling credentials in his own right, but a gritty, tough striker with real power and good combinations. Excellent ground and pound should he get on top of you. It's not about the skill set for this one because they can both win. They both have the skills to win. What I want to focus on when I break this fight down is there are two factors that really stand out in my mind that make me favor Stipe Miocic. Here's what they are. Number one, Daniel Cormier has a tendency to make emotional decisions in fights. And he's been candid about this. His coaches have been candid about this. If DC stuck to the game plan, he'd be undefeated. I hear that all the time, is that he has this tendency to, especially in fights like this, big legacy, he gets emotional about these fights. And if you look at the last one, Stipe didn't knock him out just one shot. He started working the body. He started breaking DC down. So DC had warning. He had some indication it wasn't going his way. We didn't see one takedown. We didn't see one clinch. We didn't see, oh crap, this isn't going my way. I need a breather. I need a second. I need to switch tactics here. He stood right there and got knocked out. It was, okay, you hit me, I'm going to hit you, like, he's fighting at a local show. And so that's always been the issue with DC is like, okay, you are the superior wrestler. You're a little undersized, obviously. He's heavyweight size. My point is, Stipe Miocic just his frame's a little bigger. So you don't want to have an inefficient takedown and have Stipe sprawl on top of you. You don't want to have a clinch game where you let Stipe lean on you or anything like that. But you're the superior wrestler. These punches are starting to do some real damage. I would change things around. And you could hear his corner be like, takedown. And he didn't listen. He got knocked out. And he's had that issue. I think in the second, both John Jones fights, I think he fought emotionally. And it was a stand-up battle, which played to the strengths of John Jones. And he got knocked out in the second one, got beaten in the first one. So it's one of those things where he has this tendency to not take the path of least resistance when he should. Remember, he was winning. It wasn't a blowout, but he was winning the second fight. He was ahead on the scorecards. And continue fighting a smart fight, you win the fight. And he got in a brawl when he shouldn't have, and he got knocked out. He's facing a much bigger guy who's got knockout power. So that's number one factor I look at. The second one is this is his last fight. Now, I always take MMA retirements, combat sports retirements with a grain of salt. I never believe anybody's retired until, they die or something. They get sold, they can't fight. I once had an NFL player tell me, who played in the NFL. He said, he's not a current NFL player is what I mean. The two worst years as a pro in the NFL are your first year and your last year. First year is welcome to the league, rookie. And guys hit you as hard as they can to see if you have any balls. The last year, they know you don't want to take that hit. You're thinking about margaritas on the beach this time next year. You are not going to run through the line like you used to. You're not going to plow over three guys to get the end zone like you did when you were 22. You just, it's the end of the road. You're done. You're not going to take that hit. So guys hit you like it's your rookie year because they know you don't want to take those hits. You'll run out of bounds rather than take that hit. So the idea that DC is done, that he's mentally done with MMA, win or lose, apparently, according to him, he might be checked out. And I don't mean that he didn't put everything in the training camp, that he doesn't want to win this fight. I do believe he does. Stipe sees a future. Stipe sees more fights. Stipe sees himself adding to his legacy after this fight. DC doesn't. And mentally, that's always kind of this, I don't know, this like checkpoint. That's the best way to put it. Fighters generally don't announce they're retiring before a fight because of this reason. You know, they don't want to be mentally checked out and go, all right, you know, win or lose, this is it for me. Because when the going really gets tough, that's what happens in your head is, oh, you know, it's my last one anyway. The only thing that could screw up DC's career is a severe injury, right? He takes a bad sequence of punches and he's not the same guy afterward, which I've seen happen. You know, and he that's the only thing that could screw up his commentary gig and all that stuff is if he takes that beating where he's never the same guy. Is he going to want to do that? I don't know. Only he knows the answer to that question. I'm just saying it's an unknown that favors Stipe. Stipe has always fought with a chip on his shoulder. Always. He's always been, in my opinion, disrespected. He's always been the overlooked, perhaps greatest heavyweight of all time, which is weird, but he's always been the blue-collar guy from Ohio who's had to work twice as hard as everybody else to get where he is. And this fight is another example of that. Dana White has said the winner of this fight is the greatest heavyweight of all time. Imagine being Stipe, having fought and defeated virtually every other great heavyweight in UFC history, and going, if this guy beats me 2 out of 3 times, he's the greatest of all time? When I held the belt forever and I beat all these great guys, DC's going to leapfrog me? I understand the disrespect and feeling like, you know, why is he suddenly the greatest of all time? He didn't have the legacy I had at heavyweight. So I think Stipe is going to come into this still fighting for respect, which is rare at this point in your career. You know, we've had the title defenses he's had and the legacy he's had and all this stuff. To still be fighting for respect is very, very rare. But I think he is, and I think that carries him over in this fight. I think no matter how bad this fight goes or what position he finds himself in, he's going to have the grit and heart and determination to go, F this, I'm not losing. I don't know if DC, with all he has to look forward to post-retirement, his commentary career and all that stuff, that he'll have that same edge, that he'll have that same hunger as Stipe, you know? Very quickly, that comment from Dana White that the winner of this is the greatest heavyweight of all time. For Stipe, there are 2 choices right now, Stipe and Fedor. Should Stipe win this fight? And I think even if he loses this fight, Stipe and Fedor are the 2 greatest heavyweights of all time, okay? Their legacies are comparable. They're both knockout guys, blah, blah, blah. It's really your opinion of the level that was available when Fedor was in his prime. Fedor beat 5 UFC champions, okay? Tim Sylvia, Nogueira, Big Nog, of course, Kevin Randleman, Mark Coleman, Andrei Arlovski. Okay, he beat all those guys. How many has Stipe? Stipe beat Fabricio Verdum, of course. That's how he won the title. Andrei Arlovski, DC, Junior Dos Santos. I think that's it. 4. So 4 heavyweight champions he beat. DC has, I think, 2. Stipe and Josh Barnett in Strikeforce. So when it comes to legacy, I don't know if DC becomes the greatest heavyweight of all time with the win. He beat Stipe 2 out of 3 times, but his legacy at heavyweight I don't think matches Stipe or Fedor. The problem that DC has with his legacy is the 2 weight classes he straddles. John Jones is number 1 in light heavyweight, and I think Stipe in UFC history is number 1 in the UFC. So he straddles 2 weight classes where he, I think, is the number 2 guy right now. So all time, he's a great fighter. But is he the greatest in any one weight class? It's a tough debate, but I don't think so. I think in the UFC, Stipe all time is number 1. And I think should DC beat him this time around, he could be number 2, but it's a legacy thing at heavyweight. And right now, I think Fedor and Stipe are number 1 and number 2. So anyway, I'll be back afterward to own my picks. As always, it's been a great night of fights. Enjoy.